Okay, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I would like to welcome everyone to the webinar today. We will be discussing the video media industry and how it's changed this year due to COVID and how people in their respective industries have pivoted or developed new strategies in their field. So with that, I will begin by introducing all of our panelists. I'll start with Justin Peterson. And so Justin has worked for many iconic sports brands from the U.S. Olympic Committee, Nebraska and Illinois in collegiate athletics, Chicago Bears of the NFL, and is currently the Director of Digital Content Production for the Boston Celtics in the NBA. The digital content production team is the Celtics is charged with producing content for digital, social, and commercial content. After that, we have Fletcher Garrett, who is the senior engineer at the Potter's House of Dallas. He has 34 years of experience as an engineering project manager and broadcast engineer, and has worked in some of the most challenging situations imaginable. At the Potter's House of Dallas, Fletcher designed and built their first HD television and post-production facility. Prior to working for Potter's House, Fletcher worked in Chicago as the chief engineer at WYCC-TV, which was a third market PBS television station. After that, we have Tom Smithberg, who's the founder and executive vice president at Teamworks Media, with more than 25 years of marketing and PR experience under his belt. Tom helps with new business development, client strategy and execution, finance, HR, legal, business affairs, and a lot more. Tom's career began with one of the greatest Chicago jobs of the 20th century, manager of media services for the six-time NBA champion, the Chicago Bulls. If you wanted to talk to Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, or Phil Jackson during the Bulls' 1990s dynasty, you had to go through Tom. And lastly, we have Conrad Clemson, who's since becoming CEO of EditShare in early 2019. Conrad has scaled the footprint of EditShare by more than 30%, pivoting the company's resources to lead the media industry in the areas of cloud security, remote productions, and extensible workflow solutions. An experienced leader, Conrad was previously the general manager of Cisco's service provider, video, mobility, and cloud organizations, overseeing more than 6,000 engineers, architects, professional service personnel, sales, and marketing professionals. Prior to Cisco, Conrad led two startups, BNI Video and Broadbus, through highly successful acquisitions. And our moderator for today is Carl Lemaine, a creative and leader with over 25 years experience in designing and deploying large-scale storage and asset management systems, both in the cloud and on premises. In 2014, he founded ASAPro to address the needs of post-productions, house of worship, sports, and corporate communications teams to harness and to effectively manage the vast amount of digital content they were creating. Within 2 years of existence, Carl developed ASAPro as a top media and entertainment sales and integration company in the Midwest by providing IT consultations, API workflow development, and applications training. So without further ado, Carl, I am sending this off to you to lead the panel.
Thank you, Alex, for the introduction. Like Alex said, I'm Carl Lemaine, president of ASAPro and your moderator. I want to thank all the panelists who graciously agreed to be on the call with us today, and all those in the audience who've taken time to join us. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly go over how we see this happening today. So we'll have 2 or 3 rounds, depending on how many questions we receive, how much time we have. And between rounds, we will open up and answer questions that are posted in the chat room. So like Alex mentioned, please start typing your questions in. And then we'll also open it up where the panelists can ask each other questions. And the first question goes to Justin Peterson. Justin, you and I on a number of occasions, you tell me that even though you're playing at home, it's like you're always on the road. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And can you tell us how that impact or help you with transitioning to during COVID?
Yeah, so our arena is owned by the Bruins. We have a practice facility that is a couple miles west of the city. Obviously, when we're traveling with the team, we're on the road in hotels. So that's kind of this mentality of trying to take something that could be seen as a disadvantage and trying to take it and turn it into an advantage for us. And that's all kind of stemmed into how we've built our infrastructure, how we've tried to leverage during this COVID time. We had kind of already been into planning and preparation because of all of that, because of this on the road mentality of trying to make sure that we don't really have a set studio. We don't have a space where everything flows through. Keeping that mentality and trying to figure out a way to leverage our content. Obviously, we need a centralized hub for that content to live, to be able to have everybody working from home access that content. And that's kind of what we had started working towards over the past 12 to 18 months, I would say, because of how things are set up. So I think that has really benefited us in the last 6 months or so, just trying to be able to work from home, making sure that files were accessible. We all know how large file sizes are. It's not like sending a Word document over email. You can't do that. So it's really set us up, I think, to be able to work from home a little bit better and more efficiently than we otherwise would have.
On the same line, I'd like to actually toss a question to Fletcher, because Fletcher, to a certain extent, your experience or the church experience is not that much different than some of the experience that Justin had, because a lot of your the people who attend, a lot of them are watching the services through some type of social media. And so kind of like the same question that I asked Justin, how has that helped you and your team, the engineering team? How has that prepared you guys to deal with, the unforeseen effects of COVID brought onto everyone?
Well, as you know, COVID was quite a surprise, to everyone. Our industry had hit really hard so far as the broadcast and production industry. And a lot of freelancers got out of work, and it hit hard. And but I tell you what, the easy thing for us, and I say that generically, but the easy thing for us is that we always had a web-based audience. So not only do we have church services and have it inside the church where people attend the church, but also they can view it streaming. So that was where I say it's the easiest part, because the thing is that we streamed to them. We just continued to stream. So we lost our audience, but we continued to stream. Where the creatives came up with ideas that were pretty creative was to have an audience. Like recently, if you watch the broadcast, the Potter's House, you'll see that we have a Zoom audience behind Bishop, which is a good thing. The thing that has not changed is we have to still get content out to people, and people want to see that content. So it's not like people are just going home doing nothing. Unfortunately, they don't have the social gathering, which is very important for humans. But the thing is, at least we can stay in touch through technology. And that's what we've been using the technology for, is to get messages out. A lot of people lost hope with COVID. They got depressed. It affects people in different ways. And hearing message from a faith leader like Bishop Jakes or other faith leaders really has impacted and was helpful to people. So, I think we provided a great service in getting that content out.
Yeah, so Tom, obviously your bio is phenomenal. I mean, it's like what a start in this industry, right? Working with Michael Jordan alone would have been phenomenal. But you had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. Wow, phenomenal. I mean, so I guess there's a question here somewhere. But yeah. So the question is to you, is there any lessons that you learned from that experience back then? And if there is one, how were you able to use that experience in your, as the owner of a successful business? Is there any lessons that you learned, and how did you take it forward with you? If you could talk about that.
I'll tell you what, there's the biggest lesson I learned, the most important thing is a powerful emotional story connects with everyone. Fletcher brought that up about being able to connect with people. When I co-founded Teamworks Media with my business partners in 2000, it was based on becoming and creating wonderful stories and connecting audience in new and valuable ways. We didn't know almost 21 years ago that how the internet and television was going to come together. But we knew that the value of storytelling and emotionally engaging audiences was critical. You brought up the Chicago Bulls example, Carl. Thank you very much. I am so thankful that 22 years later, after being a part of the filming of The Last Dance, that story finally came out, and how ironic that it came out 22 years later in the middle of this pandemic. And to be a young professional at the time in media relations and to be a part of the production on a day-to-day basis for 15 months as they shot film of all the Bulls games, practices, behind the scene footage at that time, to be a part of that and realize they basically put that entire film on the shelf and brought it out and finished it and completed it. And I'm just thankful that it finally came out today, or it came out earlier this year, and it was an incredible experience to see it. I happened to see a trailer for The Last Dance 18 years ago, which at the time was a 6-hour version of the film, not the 10-hour version with the updated interviews that we saw today. But we have to realize at the time of shooting that, it was 9 years before the iPhone, I think 6 years before Facebook was launched, 8 years before Twitter. And now all of those platforms are ubiquitous about storytelling. And it's amazing how that film, which was really shot on 16 millimeter film, kind of old school style, was connected 22 years later with modern media technology, modern media platforms. But the core, the common thread was the story, the connection with fans, the connection with the audience. And that was the key to all of that. And it's just very rewarding for me professionally to finally see that come out during this time. But those experiences informed me and my business partners when we launched our company 20 years ago in terms of the quality and the value of media and emotional storytelling.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal story. And so far with with all three of you guys, it's like, so there's that recurring trend about the message, the connection with people. And to that extent, I like to ask Conrad. Conrad, as the CEO, you are the face of EditShare, right? You embody the core values of what we see of EditShare. So my question to you is, what was the driving force behind your 5 core values that you've stated so well on your website, which are win together, humble, dig deeper, all around players, and customer empathy? Where did that come from? And please share with us.
Sure, absolutely, Carl. Thank you so much. And I think we've got great examples of people in the marketplace or other clients or potential clients of EditShare. And when we think about what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go with the company, we really center on a few small things. It's the team, it's the technology, and it's the market. But really, my core belief is the team is what carries us forward and makes a successful company or not. And we think about that in two important aspects. What's our strategy? What is it that we're trying to do out there? We're building great video servers. We're helping our clients to tell their stories. We're getting out there with our asset management platform. But that's only part of the story. A core part of this is what is our culture and who are we as individuals and how do we show up and act in front of our clients? And that's where our core values come in. And one of the things I always like to say to prospective interviewees is I'll pick on one of our core principles, which is being humble. One of the things I say to folks when I'm talking to them is I go, look, what you can expect from us is being humble is a nice way of saying we don't hire jerks. And look, Jeff Bezos may be the richest guy on planet Earth, and he may be the smartest guy on planet Earth, and he may have all those great things. He's never going to work for us. He's not a very nice guy. And we really believe at the end of the day, if we live to our core principles and if we walk that walk, we're going to be better partners, right, to our clients out there. And that was so true when we came into this COVID experience. If we go back to like March and April, when the world was just completely upside down, man, we were just bending over backwards to help clients do whatever was required to keep their production moving forward. And as we came into the spring, we kind of refocused and said, what do we need to do for our employees, right? How do we keep our guys in the building and their families safe? We've got 155 families out there. And so we really tried to center on that piece. And then honestly, in the middle of May, we took our roadmap and our product development plans, so we kind of put them all up on the board and we were like, is this the right thing to be doing right now? And in general, we kind of went, no, we need to refocus our roadmap. We need to talk about how we bring out remote production. How do we support employees like Fletcher, who are probably now working from home? Our CTO over the weekend, back in April, he spent a weekend and he took the APIs from Zoom, where we are right now, and connected them to the APIs at EditShare's platform, recognizing that people like Fletcher are probably going to need to connect Zoom into their production systems. That's who we are, and that's where our core values then translate right into how we show up in the industry. And quite frankly, this is a trying time both in our industry, but also in our country, and on this planet, for us to come together, to dig deep, and to win together. We feel pretty good about that.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I mentioned to you the first time you and I had our first conversation ever, it's like, after like 5 minutes, it felt like I knew you for like 10 years. I mean, you made it very easy to talk, and the honesty and everything came across very clearly. And yeah, I definitely agree with that. So at this point, if anyone's keeping track, that would be kind of like the end of round one. Again, I'm trying to do something different. I'm not sure at the end of the day it's going to be different than anyone else doing webinar, but we're trying something different. So now we've come to the end of round one. So which means that I'm opening it up to panelists to ask each other questions. And I believe there is a couple questions that may have already come in. And I will, first I'll switch it over to Alex and have Alex read off if there's any questions. If not, then the panelists can ask each other a question, and then we move on to round two.
All right, sounds good, Carl. So there was a question that was answered, it seems, by Rick Allen. Asked Justin, what was it like working in the bubble this last NBA season? And I believe Justin answered that while he was, or if not, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You can answer that as well. We do have a second question by Ryan Linich. What is one technological advancement that needs to take place to really allow cloud storage and cloud workflows to explode on the market?
Okay, I'll open it up to, maybe that sounds more like a Conrad's question, maybe that
Sure.
you're aiming to. So
Hey, look, I love talking about the cloud, right? And where we're going for technology. And, the first thing I'll say about that one is, I'm just looking around the room. I don't know, Carl, you may have as much gray hair as I do, but we're probably the two oldest guys here, and I remember if we go back to like the 90s, people were debating, gee, are we ever going to be able to do anything useful on the internet? Well, we saw how that played out, and I would say when it comes to the cloud, look, bets on planet Earth, it's like 10 million for the cloud, 0 against it. This is one of those technologies where what I would encourage people to think about is, look, don't bet against it, right? This is not a battle that gets won. On the other hand, the timing on when people are ready to move to the cloud is radically different as a function of who you are and what kind of content you're dealing with and how you're trying to distribute it. We're seeing a number of clients, particularly sports clients, and people who are really close to real time, who are going right now. And if you look and you go, what's holding us back? Look, the number one thing that's holding us back is the same thing that's held back many of our technology transitions. And it's willingness to take the risk to adopt and understanding where we are in that adoption curve relative to the risks that are in front of us. This is not a perfect transition to go from on-prem to the cloud. On the other hand, what I would tell you is that the people who are moving to the cloud are going to the cloud and seeing the benefit of velocity. And so, if time to getting your product out into your consumers' hands, or time to get it on air, if that's your major concern, I would encourage you to move and move quickly. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the marketplace right now is the cost and the complexity of moving to the cloud, and both of those are not to be taken lightly. And you've seen at EditShare, for example, with our seamless proxy editing, we've taken a couple of major steps forward at knocking those cost barriers down. But it is a transition that you have to take on thoughtfully, and be prepared for both the gains that you can take, but there is risk associated with it. And it's one where I would definitely say you want to test it, and you want to see it, and you want to live with it, and then you want to be able to move forward. I'll leave one closing thought on that. There will be a set of technologists who will resist this change. There will be a set of people who will control it and go, it's not your cloud, it's my cloud. You do it my way, under my terms. Don't accept that. That's not what the cloud is about, right? The cloud is about ubiquity, it's about openness, and it's about choice. And that's what, as an industry, we need to strive for. And if we do that, I think there's going to be a massive opportunity for us to really look at the entire production flow, and see it in a whole new light that's going to allow us to move faster, more nimbly, and more cost effectively in the long haul. It's a cool time. It's a cool time to be in the industry, and it's a cool transition to be a part of.
definitely very exciting. Before we, there's another question that came in, and guess for whom? For you, Conrad. You're not done talking. So there's a question from Reed that reads, tell me more about how you see Zoom or video conference system integration deeper into EditShare.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's a great one. Look, we have a number of clients, a number of them primarily in the corporate segment. And you can imagine, for example, that when this is all done, Carl may want to be able to produce this and quickly publish it as a finished product. One of the things that's really cool about web companies is web companies believe very, very strongly in APIs. And at EditShare, we've certainly adopted that. And by the way, look, we're not alone at that. And if you look at some of our partners out there, folks like Blackbird, Imagine Communications, Helmet, these are all like-minded software companies. And one of the things that we all do is we live and die by our application programming interfaces. Everything that you can do with an EditShare system, you should be able to do programmatically through our APIs. You can find all of those APIs on the web. Anybody can access them. I can access them, Carl can, our competitors can. What we found is, for example, Zoom does the exact same thing. And what we're able to do is to take the APIs from EditShare and connect them to the APIs at Zoom. So if you're running a Zoom conference like this, we're actually able in real time to capture the video feeds, ingest them into our EditShare system, and make them available to an editor as quickly as Zoom makes them available to us. And if you think and you go, well, what's interesting about that? Look, how many times have you turned on the TV in the last 6 months and you see a screen like this where a bunch of talking heads are all sitting on there in a Zoom conference? All of that stuff can be very quickly turned into production video. And that's what we're bringing out. And look, the thing that's cool about this is just one example. Everybody has API. Almost everybody has APIs. And so the ability as an industry to be able to capture those things and quickly bring our capabilities together, it's pretty neat. We've been working, Fletcher's been a terrific partner and client of ours. And we've worked with a couple of other houses of worship, and one of them in particular, as an example, has an application where they have a minister who speaks both English and Spanish, and they want to be able to transcode both of those things on the fly. We are able to pick the right transcoding engine that can capture both Spanish and English, plug that into our platform, and now they can really quickly get that turned around in a way that's unique for that client. Or Justin in sports, we've got a great integration with Sports Stats, who brings out tons and tons of metadata. And if you go back to Tom's example, one of the things we're able to do for our sports clients is capture all that metadata, and we just tag it and throw it in the database. Because you never know, maybe 20 years from now, there's going to be a pandemic and everybody's going to want to come back and see how Cam Newton did winning the Super Bowl for the Patriots.
Great.
Just as an example.
Thank you, Conrad.
Yeah, and one quick follow-up to what Conrad was talking about in terms of workflow and production and the cloud. I was just speaking to several of our team members and about storage. And we used to always talk about what do we need, what's the future. And I was astounded when I was told, oh yeah, we have 110 terabytes of storage right now. And we're a small company, under 20 employees. And that's already not enough for what we need going forward. And it was just 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Carl, we were talking, and well, do we invest in a 36 terabyte storage as part of our, EditShare plan program at the time? So really, very true. The cloud is the future for all of this workflow process.
I also like what Conrad added about getting started and dipping your toe in the water. It does help alleviate some of the risk factors involved, and that's kind of the direction that we've started to go in. You get into it and you start to understand how it works, and then you feel a lot more comfortable looking to expand what you're doing. And a lot of the especially for me, coming from the video production side, trying to learn some of the terminology, whether you're talking about Glacier with AWS or some of that, just like people starting to talk about it and just understanding what those terminologies mean and how they all relate to each other. Just picking some of that up I felt was probably one of the key turning points for me in starting to understand how all of it works, is just starting to dip your toe in the water, and then you have to learn as you go.
And Justin, I think that's a great example where a technology company like ours can partner with a media production organization like yours, which is, look, I'm a sports junkie. And I love watching sports, but when it comes to producing sports and understanding how to make that relevant to clients, boy, do I have a lot to learn with folks like you and your teams. The counter to that is, one of the things we try really hard to do is to simplify technology into something that's useful. And I mean, picking on another industry great. Look, when Steve Jobs described the original iPad as 10,000 songs in your pocket, look, my wife understood that. When I explained to her, no, this is a 180 gig disk drive, and what's really cool is it's only 1 3/4 inches, and that she's like, no, I'm done. It's 10,000 songs in my pocket. So I think us as technologists and you, to the degree that we can relate together, we can really solve some cool problems.
Fantastic, great. So there are a couple questions that came in. Like I said, things are changing very rapidly. There are a couple questions in the queue I'd like to come back to. But I'd like to move to round two real quick. And the question is directed to Justin. And the reason I'm asking this question is because there might be a lot of organization like you. There are kind of like in the same mindset. It's like they're managed. There's what the production people want to do, and then there's what finance will allow them to do, right? And you told me a great story, and then on how you were able to get your projects that were in the queue before COVID to move forward, and what you had to do to convince your management team. Could you tell us that story? I mean, I thought that was fascinating on how creative you were in how you went about it.
Yeah, I think, we all understand that metadata is key, and ultimately with what we're trying to accomplish with asset management and storage is trying to make it seamless and efficient, because that way we can spend a lot more of our time and energy on the creative side of the content, whether it's editing or shooting or any of that side of the content, as both Tom and Fletcher alluded to, of sharing the emotional elements with people, fans, however you want to see that. So I think from my perspective, we are a small team. We're 7 people strong on the video production side, so that's relatively small team. And in doing some research, I found out that we still made up probably 96 or 97% of our core infrastructure, working with our IT department. So, that's pretty substantial. And obviously for the reasons that we all understand, as far as, file sizes, where, when you start to shoot some stuff in 4K, that really increases the file sizes as well too. So I approached it from that side, tried to explain, hey, this is the problem that we're facing. This is, we're taking up 97%. And I think a lot of people also don't understand that our department has really only been around for about 8 years in this December. So I'll get emails forwarded to me and says, hey, somebody's looking for the archivist of the Celtics. I guess that's you. And I've been here for about 7 years. And people see the organization as historical, but it's really relatively young as far as the digital content production side goes. So really starting to build the foundation, and there's a ton of footage that we have that we aren't even really aware of. So really just trying to bring that out and share that with the stories. And, I think Last Dance is a perfect example of that, as Tom alluded to earlier too. So I also approached it from, building off the story side. I heard a story that ESPN was looking for a broadcast from, I think it was December 7th of 1979. It was just after they got on the air, and it was a Wisconsin DePaul game. And there's, a high likelihood that people could have discarded that, but come to find out that was Dick Vitale's first broadcast. And if they had gotten rid of that footage from back in the day, or if somebody logging it was like, well, this game isn't going to mean anything, we don't need to keep this, then, what's the point? So I tried to highlight my hoarding tendencies, and tried to explain why it was necessary to keep it, why it was beneficial. We're already going on these shoots. We're spending the time and energy to go on the shoots. We're spending the time and energy to come back and edit a piece. We're going to log it properly so that it can be cataloged and archived, because in order to hold on to the footage, it only makes sense if you're able to search and retrieve it. So just through that whole process, trying to highlight, hitting on some of the emotional stuff. Obviously, people know who Dick Vitale is today, but they probably didn't 40 years ago. So that all coupled with the fact that we take up so much space on the storage system that we also don't 100% really know what we have in some of the archives, is kind of how I built the case and tried to help everybody understand what we were trying to do. And it worked so far. So that was good.
Carl, your question to Justin was very timely from my perspective, because my team just pitched me on the updated EditShare Airflow upgrade, which was an easy decision for us to make from a business perspective, because to have the ability to search and locate video clips with the metadata that you discussed is just critical for us for workflow efficiency, especially for the amount of content that's being created now every day, every week. There's no one human being that could be an archivist and know things, all the information in the back of their head. You need help with the technology, and we're just doing that right now, and it's just going to be invaluable for our workflow process going forward.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting things I think we're seeing in video too now, and I'm curious, Tom and Justin. I mean, I think sports is a great example of it, where what we think is important today and what's going to turn out to be important 20 years from now, are oftentimes not the same thing. And I think it's one of the interesting things that over time we're going to find some, long-standing value in doing things like doing deep archiving into, into certain cloud technologies where we can do stuff with it more easily than we can bring it back on tape. And boy, The Last Dance, what a great example of going, geez, this is something obvious we should do. Justin, somebody ought to team up and do something similar on look, when I was back in college, it was Larry Bird and Danny Ainge, and neither of those, and Kevin McHale, and none of those guys were in the front office, right? They were all playing basketball. And who knows what we're actually going to want to go back and find in the future. Your example of Dick Vitale is another really good one. And I think it brings out the idea of us thinking about different classes of storage and different capabilities that span from, at our homes, in our office, in the cloud, in deep archive. Those are areas with really strong innovation possibilities for all of us together.
Interesting, real quick, that you brought that up. Back to The Last Dance. Back 22 years ago, they would be shooting a scene in the locker room or something behind the scenes, and it wouldn't have any context, because they've shot so much every day. They would have me put my nose up to the microphone, by the camera, and just narrate what the heck is going on that day. And I would get, email was still new then. I would get emails from the editors, who were logging the footage a year later saying, thank you. I had to use your narration of what was going on to this scene in the locker room here, or with a doctor or whatever, player meeting a coach, what day it was, what time it was, what was the context. And without that, they were emailing me, and I had no idea that I was providing any value as just an assistant media relations person behind the scenes.
Yeah.
These days, now technology and all that can help.
There's a question from Mike that says, should editors have more storage available at home? And is there a way to have abridged EditShare systems at home that communicate with remote editors and the main system server? For example, having duplicate media copied to local system overnight automatically based on current project needs. I'm afraid that, Conrad, it seems like
But you know what? I think we were, to some degree, I think we were kind of talking about this, Mike, and it's a really good question. I think Tom gave you a great example. One of the things we're finding more and more is we need to think about where content lives, at home, in a card, in your office, in the cloud. And one of the places where we've made a lot of investments in our Flow platform, our asset management platform, is really thinking about, especially in this bold new world of not many of us are in the office, how do we do that hierarchical storage management? So I think the answer to that is yeah. And look, we in the industry need to do more to solve these kinds of problems for the industry. I think one of the other interesting things that ties into that is speeds and feeds. And there's a really interesting cross section here because, the NBA in particular have been leaders in virtual reality, moving to 4K, and really embracing technology. But I'll tell you something, right behind that are houses of worship. I mean, a lot of the places where Potters is really pushing us. Look, you heard Fletcher talk about the idea of, hey, we're filling in virtual backgrounds and Zoom in behind that. You know, one of the things we've found is probably the #2 segment behind sports and starting to push on 4K is houses of worship. Because in many cases, you know, these churches and particularly the ministers behind them are bringing very immersive and complete experiences that really benefit from those kinds of platform, and moving from, you know, fully produced and broadcast to, in many cases, running multiple channels online live. It's a very challenging environment.
I do have a question for you, Fletcher, from Reed. What streaming service are you using today? I'm not, without going too details into, you know, company names or whatever. I mean, if you can talk about that, and then we can reach out directly to Reed with that, the answer.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, we actually have a separate department that does that. You know, that Lance is over. So we have a separate department that does that. I believe the equipment we're using is High Vision. That's what we use. You know, High Vision is very secure. That's the biggest thing. And when you're streaming stuff, you don't want people stealing your audience, making jokes out of it on YouTube, like which has happened with some ministers. You know, so, but I can't really talk too much on it because, you know, I'm not really over that equipment.
Correct. That is correct. I believe my understanding from your IT person, you are using High Vision, and I believe High Vision has a technology called SRT, which is
Yes.
Secure Reliable Transmission,
Mm-hmm.
which is not only used for, I mean, it is so secure that a lot of like high secret government entities are using that technology, and that technology is very efficient, very fast, and very secure. So Reed, definitely, if you would like to get more information about that, I would be more than willing to follow up with you on that. But yes, take a look at the technology is really SRT, and I believe it was developed by High Vision, and High Vision has opened that technology and made it basically public, you know, for other companies to incorporate into their infrastructures. Conrad, not to put you on the spot, but I don't know if it's a technology that you guys have incorporated into your platform yet, but
you know, it's funny. It goes back a little bit to those core values, right? When we look at our core values, we go, hey, the software that drives high performance shared storage and asset management. When we think about both ingest and play out, we very much go to a partnered ecosystem. You know, from a technology standpoint, I think you hit on one, SRT. WebRTC is another great example of that. And we certainly have a set of partners across the ecosystem, depending on where you're trying to publish to. And I think one of the things to really think about, if you're thinking about, you know, either live or near live production and play out, is where are you going? You know, and it was interesting because there was a question on the chat line, Carl, about, gee, what do you think of Twitch? And what a great example of tying in WebRTC, video production and streaming, by the way, integrated with, you know, online participation and gaming on the side. And we're seeing more and more pickup, particularly at the high end of the market. You know, let's see, between all of us here, my daughter's on Twitch and she has 11 people who follow her. That's a very different video production than Ninja, who shows up and 2 million people come to watch him play. Or, you know, we're seeing a really big push of the gaming companies actually starting to take a little more control over what's happening in their online environments, right? And, you know, one of the things, for example, that's very different from like Justin and Tom's world in the NBA, where you have the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls and the NBA and Michael Jordan, is as you move into some of these esports and online capabilities, look, you've got Epic Games and Riot Games and Ubisoft, and those guys control the experience from front to back. And you can see a much more integrated environment that I think is going to be coming from those companies. And it's going to be really fascinating to see how that plays out. I'm curious, Justin and Tom, how are you guys thinking about, from a sporting environment, how you're starting to take on that online environment and those online venues?
I think the usage and, application varies and ranges for every single application. And I think just social media in general, there's just a lot of opportunities that we all can't take advantage of right now, whether that's, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, or Twitters. They're all advancing technologically, and the capabilities, whether it's live or whether it's, the extended amount of time or the formatting, and there's just a lot of different ways to go about it. So I think, to be honest, it's stretching thin for us to be able to try and keep up with all the different platforms to try and stream to. And we started to dip our toe in a little bit, but didn't see a lot of success early. So we've stuck with some of the more tried and true.
Yeah, and for us, our two largest client partners are the Big Ten Conference and the Big Ten Network. And even though they're connected, they are two separate entities, and they are both relatively conservative organizations, representing the 14-member schools of the Big Ten. So they're a little behind the curve on wanting to be, on the front end of some of these new digital tools to communicate with people. On the other hand, the other side of our business, the non-agency side of our business, which is properties that we own ourselves. For example, we own a digital media platform called La Vida Baseball that we created and developed ourselves to reach up to 20 million Latino baseball fans on a daily basis. We're definitely in 2021 going to be using and be willing to experiment and try new platforms just to see who we can communicate to, who can we acquire as audience members, how to engage them, how to get them to interact. And I think for us, we are going to put our feelers out there to really see what's going to stick and what's not. But I believe for us, that'll be the platform where we really can experiment and sink our teeth into future, I'll call it emerging, media.
It's funny you say that, Tom and Justin, because there are a couple of investments that we've started really trying to make to kind of line up around those themes. One for the sports folks out there is I'd encourage you to look at Blackbird. They're a new partner of ours, and they really feature, I think, two capabilities that we're excited to be adding to our platform. One is the idea of being able to do this very, very fast, sort of quick cut editing, really targeting live production, but then immediately being able to take that and publish it out to internet style feeds and social media. Is something that's been really, really powerful. And then going exactly to your point, Tom, we're really focused on capturing more and more of the metadata and the analytics that just sort of flow into our platform as we're seeing what the editors are doing. And to be honest, we're not always sure, like, I don't know, is this interesting or not? But we're like, you know what? We're going to save it and capture it because it might be. And if we save it, you can go back and get it. And I think you're right. There's so many opportunities for us to collaborate across the spectrum, from creatives to networks to technology providers, and really try to figure out some interesting things to do in the industry.
Yeah, all you have to look back just a couple years to Vine. I thought that was a great concept, or it just didn't have any staying power.
Yeah, Vine. I'll tell you, the other one I loved like that kind of came and went was Periscope. Right? Mm-hmm. Very few people here probably even remember what that was, but what a really cool idea of me being able to go, I'm gonna capture some video and you can watch it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
While we were talking, there are a couple questions that came from Reed. And I'm assuming it's probably to Conrad. It says, what about back out to the live production? Any tools in the work? And And I believe that question came in a little bit earlier when you're talking about the integration with Zoom.
Yeah.
So, so if you can speak about that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, Reed, you're asking a lot of really cool questions, man. I saw that one, the VR question too. You know, look, we are constantly on the so we're trying to do a couple of things. One is we're making a big investment at being a great partner. Period. You know, and one of the things that I think is really interesting about this industry, and you can just see it in those of us sitting around on the call here, is many different walks of life, but we're all brought together by this common idea of doing a better job of creating content. And one of the things I feel like I've seen in this industry is we have a lot of very, very small partners out there, and a lot of people who are doing really interesting things, but you know, very, very focused. I remember like at my first NAB, just like walking around one morning, and I'd walk up to a booth and I go like, "What do you do?" And the guy goes, "I do explosions." Oh, and I'm like, "Is that a feature?" He's like, "Nope, that's the company." You know, and you walk down to the next, "What do you do?" "I change hair color." And look, these are important capabilities, but it's really hard for those people to get above the noise and above the fray. And so one of the things we're really trying to do at EditShare is to go, look, we don't have the monopoly on coming up with great ideas. So what we're going to do is create enough of a platform and an ecosystem to make it really easy for people to plug innovation into that. And quite frankly, sometimes it's our end customers. I know, look, Fletcher and his team, they have challenged us greatly in terms of stepping up our capabilities. And we're always looking at, gee, what are we learning by what our clients are doing out there in the marketplace? And I think we're gonna get better and better about that. You know, and I think you asked about VR. You know, man, I would almost turn that one back to Tom and Justin. We certainly have viewpoints on it. You know, one of the things I think that's the most interesting thing about VR is, okay, so we're going to capture, generally speaking, 4K video. We don't want anybody to get motion sickness. So it's either 60 or 120 frames per second. By the way, we're going to put one in this eye and we're going to put one in that eye. So we got 2 screens worth of content. It is a lot of heavy video that's got to get moved around almost instantaneously for it to be real. I mean, Justin, you guys, NBA, you know, and Tom, NBA has been one of the leaders in VR and 4K. What do you guys think about that?
I believe more in AR than VR, to be honest. I think there are definitely tools and applications where VR makes sense, but I think what we learn from VR will probably apply more to AR going forward. That's just my opinion on it, though.
Yeah, I just know from strictly an operational standpoint with the Big Ten conference schools, VR is really used as a training tool for all the athletic programs, specifically with football, in terms of creating real live experiences for middle linebackers, quarterbacks, in terms of understanding what their opponents are in real time. That's what we've heard through our relationships, and we'd love to dig in and tell more of those stories, because that's really, really cool stuff. I've seen a couple demos of that, and it's just nothing short of extraordinary.
So Tom, I'll tell you right now, my next startup is going to be a VR company that when you get sacked, if you're watching it, it hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is that it's really cool to see you know, the expanse opportunities for the gaming engines to be involved in the production, and I think that's really where that's kind of what I get at with when I say VR extension into AR, just understanding those atmospheres and how you can bring in like a real world opportunity into some AR executions. And I totally agree with what Tom said too, with the experiences and opportunities there. That's definitely
that's a two-sided opportunity too. You know, if you look at like Unity, Drastic, Unreal, which are probably some of the leading gaming engines out there, you know, there's both an opportunity for us to leverage that to create more immersive and complete video experiences. By the way, it can also be a target for us.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, there are a couple more questions that came in. Justin, there's a question that came to you. Justin, it's from Rick Allen. Justin, what was it like working in the bubble this NAB season?
Yeah, so I think I can touch on this one and the one with Mike, the one that Mike asked about the editors and the storage available at home, just from our use, because I think, you know, we had one person boots on the ground, one videographer's boots on the ground in the bubble, and he had a lot on his plate and did a fantastic job for us. And you know, we relied on him to capture content and send it back, and you know, also pick up shooting photos in addition to video, and make it all happen. So I think that's really what where it was really helpful to us to have that workflow in place where we could have him send content back. And you know, the NBA also did a fantastic job of making sure that content was available. To what Mike was asking, you know, when somebody at home downloads it, it is local. And so we made sure that everybody had some local drives to use when, you know, when editing. And then we also have been working towards making sure that content is able to get back to the central hub so that it is, you know, something that other people can access. The downside to the work from home right now, as Conrad had kind of alluded to with some of those other cloud editing platforms, is that you do have to pretty much have content local in some regard. If you have it in the cloud, it is capable of being edited, but you know, it is important to make sure you have local storage, at least for us in the short term, because if something is not accessible, if something happens with your internet, you got to still keep working in some, you know, in some fashion. And so having that footage local is key. And that's I think one of the lessons that we learned from the bubble too, as we continue to push down this path of making sure things are accessible, is just making sure that although we want to fully rely on expecting everything to work according to plan, you do also have to protect yourself in some regard to make sure that you can continue to work, whether it's, you know, downtime, whether it's home internet, or any of that kind of stuff that comes up.
There's one question here from Ryan Linish. It goes, what is the one technology advancement that needs to take place to really allow cloud storage and cloud workflow to explode on the market? Before I toss it, I'm thinking I would like to add a little bit to that question, because I believe where he may be going is the fact that obviously cloud storage is still currently fairly expensive. The really big players out there we know are the AWS, and there's a dollar amount attached to it. But in the last few years, there has been some new, smaller companies like Wasabi and Backblaze that provides more cost-effective cloud storage. So, adding to his question to you, Conrad, is there something for the mid-size or lower end customers who may not be able to afford an AWS solution currently?
Yeah. So couple of answers to that question, right? Look, first thing I'll say is, quite frankly, I think some of us in the technology world have been a little bit lazy in addressing some of the cost challenges in cloud storage, right? It's really easy to just point up to the cloud and go, stick it in EBS, send AWS your credit card, good luck, goodbye, I hope it works. You know, if you look at some of the advancements that I think EditShare has made and a couple of the other technology providers in the industry, look, what I would tell you is there a cost premium? There's a cost premium. How much is it really? I think you measure it in the 10 to 20% range, right? And we ought to be able to demonstrate to you why that's not only manageable, it's advantageous. And what I would suggest is, what we're finding is our customers who are leaning in on the cloud, right now, quite frankly, the biggest overall challenge in that space, I think, is less actually on the storage side than it is on the workstation side to do your editing. And I think we've got some good answers that are starting to come on that. So, look, what I would encourage clients who are out there is to go, hey, number one, lean in and ask for a POC, right? And go, hey, I'd like to see AWS and the technology vendor, or Google and the technology vendor, leaning in with some dollars to help fund that and show me that this really works economically. And I think you'd be a little surprised about where we are right now and how we're moving forward. 2021 is going to be a pivotal year for the cloud. And I think we should all be a part of that. Now, if you look and you go, I want to do something different, look, I would really encourage you to think about taking a hybrid approach. The private cloud providers and the people who go, oh, no, I'm really good at storage and I can do it cheaper than Amazon. I would go, gee, Amazon adds 1 million servers every 90 days. I'm going to go out on a limb and go, they're probably pretty good at it. And what we should do is to leverage them. And if the economics are in the way, we should challenge them to help us with that. That's my opinion on it. And I think we can demonstrate that it makes sense to move in that direction, both from a cost side, but of equal importance, the agility that it gives you to win in the marketplace, to create your content more efficiently. I think we'll find that those costs are going to help us a lot. And particularly in an environment, if you think about sports production is a great example. If we don't have to fly production crews all over the country or all over the world to produce sports, that savings by itself, that's going to pay a lot of AWS bills.
Justin, what lessons or takeaways from dealing with COVID-19 can you share with your peers in the sports world? 1 minute.
I love working from home. The hotel speeds still need massive improvements. And I think that, that's definitely going to be a continuous hurdle for us. But at the end of the day, I think we've learned that the work from home is not as bad as we thought it might be, and if this happened 2 years ago, we'd be in a totally different state. So I'm a big believer in, setting yourself up for success and continuing to prepare as if, looking at this technology that's coming up. Conrad has mentioned quite a few opportunities and different vendors that are, creating some great opportunities and continuing to explore those, I think, is really a big benefit to everything that we're doing. So just in general, I think it's mostly continue to explore, continue to dip your toe in the water, and test out some new technology and find ways to become more efficient there, so that we can spend more time on the creative side of content.
Thank you, Justin. And Fletcher, I know you guys recently did a big upgrade. Question for you is, can you quickly summarize in a minute what the benefit of that upgrade would provide to your organization and for other companies that may be looking for potentially upgrade but are kind of skeptic about it? What would you recommend?
Oh, well, one thing, it's easier to work with less people in a building and less people demanding things from you. That's very true. But also to know that, the benefits of technology is that you're able to do things faster in less time, save resources, which saves money. So, it's always a benefit to get newer technology that works. Key thing is that new technology that works. But we're already seeing that our new system, we did a refresh, is a lot faster, and that's going to save us time. And there's shortcuts on it, and not shortcuts so far as, this taken away from quality, but things can be done in a shorter time because of new workflow inventions and things that they have. So just to summarize it, if you can, right now is probably a good time to upgrade, because like I said, it's less people, less demand on you, and then you're able to get something that takes you into the future that you can benefit from, continue to benefit from, with the new technology.
Thank you, Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom, as a business owner, obviously, over the past 5 years, you've made a number of upgrade and investment into technology. What can you summarize your take on that? And it's like from a financial perspective, because a lot of times we don't necessarily talk about, as a business owner, the finance person, what impact do you see? Efficiency or whatever can you talk about, and recommendation for other facilities?
Yeah, when making decisions on investing in new equipment, I think we always, the day March 12th, 2020 is the day that changed many of us. And I'm glad that I have good business partners that we share the conversation several years ago about planning for the future. Nobody knew what was going to happen this year. But I think the lesson going forward is think about March 12th in the future, where suddenly everyone's got to work from home, use their imagination, use their creativity, use their resourcefulness in new ways. And that our job as owners or managers is to provide options and capabilities through technology to enable that creativity, that resourcefulness, and that forcing people to work from home using imagination, keeping that as an option going forward, because you never know what's going to happen, whether it might be a pandemic or a new technology or a new business opportunity. So really my headline is use the negative and the challenge when making these financial investments as an opportunity for the longer term, for the future.
Great, thank you. And Conrad, as a leader who must anticipate where the market is heading, I think you and I spoke, and I say, just imagine you have that crystal ball, that magic 8-ball. What do you see in 5 years? Where do you see EditShare in 5 years in terms of technology, and how are you going to wow us in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think as a building block for that, look, one of the things I'd reflect is, and just look at the panelists sitting around here. Look, 2020 was a very dark year for the United States of America. We've lived through COVID. We've had 250,000 Americans die. We've been through a very challenging and divided election. We've had a lot of social unrest. At the end of the day, we create content that helps the rest of our country to, get some escape, get some enlightenment, achieve a need when everybody gets home and looks and tries to get a respite from the dark out there. So first and foremost, look, Tom, Justin, Fletcher, what you guys are doing. At one level, we can trivialize it and go, we're just making TV. On the other hand, everybody's going home. Nobody can go out. Everybody's hanging out. Lord knows, look, some of us need church every day. Some of us need the NBA every day. Some of us need the NFL, at least on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. But we all need something, and we're going there. And that is not going to change. So if you look and you go, what's going to happen over the next 5 years? We're going to communicate more and more via video. That is a trend that has been going on for the last 10 years. The internet doesn't move data anymore. The internet moves video. And more and more and more of what we are doing are immersive and complete video experiences. And look at EditShare. We're going to dig deeper and win together with you guys and with the industry out there to create better and better experiences. What does that look like? It looks like it's ruthlessly open. It looks like we're creating the kinds of technology that our clients buy because they want to and not because they feel like they have to. And what we're going to do is every day we're going to wake up and think, what do we do today to make it just a little bit easier and to bring a little bit more innovation there? So, what I would say to the potential clients and people who are looking out there, look, look for companies that are bringing you rapid innovation. And what that means to me is look, our contract with our clients is every 90 days we bring in new software. Fletcher, you like what you have now? You wait, because 21.1 comes out in 3 weeks, and you're going to love the new UX, and you're going to love the DaVinci Resolve panel. And wait until you see what comes after that when we start to bring out the next round of multi-site support. It's really cool. And that's how we're going to help the industry. And by the way, and I hope that's how we as an industry are going to help our country, because Lord knows we need it right now.
Thank you, Conrad. So this is the end of our very first webinar panel discussion. I want to thank all the panelists for joining me, and I want to thank my team, Alex and Steve. They've done a phenomenal job. Without them, there's no way this would have happened. This is way, I'm supposed to be a technology guy, but that's way beyond my knowledge with all the Zoom stuff. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alex. You've made it a phenomenal event for us. And thank you for the audience for joining us. I know there were a lot of questions that came up, and we may not have been able to get to all of them, but we promise that we will follow through, and then we'll try to get you answers as promptly as possible. Stay tuned for our next event. Thank you.
In-person next event.
In-person next event, let's hope. Thank you.
There you go.
God willing.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Carl, thank you for having us. What a great hour. This is really, really super.